All right, so it's launch week of 3030 3.0, which is big, especially with Mountain Tough. A lot of people might not know the history, but 3030 was early on in the Mountain Tough history. What had happened is preseason prep came out as one of our most popular programs ever.
Yeah.
And then we did postseason strength 1.0, and all the Mountain Tough customers started calling us and they said, this is great, but what do I do at a hotel room? This is great, but what should I do when I'm traveling with no gear? And we listened to their feedback and we're like, let's do 3030 1.0. We'll do some amazing elite level body weight workouts that people can do anytime, anywhere in the world, hotel gyms, hotel rooms. They can do them inside and outside. What we didn't know is that right after we did that is when COVID hit in 2020. So we had preseason, we had postseason, and then we had 3030, and those were our first three programs. So we already had built 3030 pre-COVID, and a bunch of people had been using it and loving it. And then COVID hit, and everyone just went into 3030 because people at that time didn't have a lot of gear at home like they do now. And then every gym in the country was closed. So ironically, 3030 1.0, 2.0, and I'm sure it'll be similar for 3.0, are the most watched videos oftentimes in Mountain Tough history. So when we look at our data, then a lot of 3030 workouts are the most used, most utilized, most watched. And it's because we all need these workouts in our life where we don't have a gym. We're not going to have a gym for a while. Maybe we're traveling, maybe we're moving locations, but the flexibility of it, and then also just from a training perspective, sometimes to come off load for a while and go back to body weight to stay extremely athletic has some benefits. So because 3030 1.0 and 2.0 are so utilized, we knew it was time for something new. We knew that the Mountain Tough community was looking for it, and now it is launching, which is cool.
It's launching 3.0. It's got to be something good to make a 3.0, right? Like it's proven to be such an amazing staple in the Mountain Tough, plethora of offerings that we have. So to make a 3.0, it's definitely proven its worth. So, and I mean, there's nothing better than creating a program where you really you don't have any excuse to not do it.
No excuses.
And I mean, that's been a joke in the office. It's been kind of funny. It's like we should make a whole list of excuses we could make to not do this program. And it's like, you've got to come up, you've got to be really creative. But it was the difference though, I think with 3.0 is, the shift from 1.0 and 2.0 is that we have now learned that our follow-along structures have really hit a really positive nerve in our community. And so we decided to, having made the decision, we're going to make this 3.0 a follow-along, I think gives just a unique and positive shift to the greatness of the originals. So now, as opposed to being self-guided, you have the ease of just pressing play.
Just hit play.
Yep. You don't have to read. You can read a PDF. We will provide PDFs, but you don't have to, decipher anything yourself. You literally press play and you can be coached. And they are strictly under 30 minutes.
We're sure of that.
We're sure of that. Literally, it is like my goal to never go over that 30-minute timer. So versus the originals, if you maybe aren't quite to an elite level, those workouts could take 45 minutes to 60 minutes. And that's okay. They're still phenomenal. They're obviously phenomenal workouts, but these are strictly 30 minutes. And I think having that dependability and accessibility of knowing that is a very positive shift that we've made.
Yeah.
So
that's an important one to talk about from the follow along perspective, because I think if you have not gone into Mountain Tough yet and you're listening to this, we have the self-guided which we've had for a long time, which is we're going to tell you exactly what to do for the workout of the day, and then you're going to go do it. But the big shift in our company history was the introduction of the MGDs, and the MGDs brought this new coach style to the table where you hit play, you have a Mountain Tough coach, and then you have two athletes. A lot of times it's one male, one female, and we're with you the whole entire time in your living room or your garage or your basement. So we're going to coach you through it essentially live in a live format, all video based. And that's what the 3.0 is bringing to the table, which is huge for Bodyweight, because Bodyweight, you're able to adapt quickly, move quickly. You're not moving around a gym. And so the coached format is optimal for this kind of training.
Mm-hmm. And having a coach, like, you have, well, not just the coach, the athletes, you have somebody to compare to. So I think a lot of times with the self-guided, you're like, you have no reference of what pace you should be keeping, or we really never tend to push ourselves as hard as we would if we were competing against somebody, whether that's on the screen or somebody you're working out with, that's right next to you. So I think what we have learned in the past 2 to 3 years of doing these follow along programs, whether it's kettlebell, KB20, kettlebell diesel, HP20, and MGDs, gym dailies, is that I think people really appreciate that interactive energy, even though we can't communicate, but like, I beat Nate by 3 reps, or man, I was just behind Dara. Like, I think there's something to that.
Yeah.
And to apply that to an elite level body weight, I think is really magical, because it doesn't require like, oh, I'm not as strong as them, or I'm way stronger. We're just moving our bodies. So let's look at what range of motion should look like, what an intensity level should look like things like that it's really good to have that reference on camera and on film.
Yeah, I think it pushes people to a whole new level that's very difficult to get to on your own. And you can definitely get to that level when someone's competing with you in person, but it's almost the same on camera, where you're like, I'm trying to keep up with that athlete. They're one round ahead of me, and I'm going to try to catch them. Yeah. That's where you get definitely like that maximal effort.
Yeah. But I think along with being follow along, let's talk logistics of the program, right? Like what you need. So we definitely kept it where we incorporated running still, because I think that was a very integral part of the originals that people really liked. They got those days of running in. So what we did is we strategically chose just 2 days a week. Tuesdays and Thursdays, you're going to see some running. All of the running is flat. So what we purposefully programmed that in order to make it accessible for people that just have an area to run, or a space, or, a road. You can still do this outside. You don't have to have access to an incline. So that's important to note. All workouts, the only things you will require are a pull-up bar and a cooler, or a step box or cooler. So you will need access to a pull-up bar. And a lot of people are like, I don't always have that on the road. And so we get that question all the time. What do I do if I don't have a pull-up bar? It's so hard to give a substitute for such a solid bread and butter movement.
Yeah.
My first recommendation is a suspension trainer, like a TRX strap or something, so you get some sort of resisted pull. But ideally you would want access to some sort of way to pull your body to a bar, whether that's with a banded lat pull or a suspension trainer of some sort. So to answer all of the, like, what is the program? What do I need? A box stepper, cooler, a pull-up bar, a relatively small space. I mean, we do move a little bit, but you'll need space to, jump, backpedal, things like that. And then a place to run, or a treadmill.
Yeah. And we learned a lot about that from 1.0 and 2.0, where a tremendous amount of people doing the 30-30 programs are doing them at a hotel room or even outside. And what we saw over time is you can pick the ones based on your location, if you're going to need your pull-up bar, or if you're going to need a run. So you can always run outside if you need to, if you don't have access to the treadmill, which a tremendous amount of Mountain Tough customers do. But if you're stuck in a hotel room with nothing at all, and that's where you plan to get your workout, you can definitely make sure that you're picking a day that has no running or no treadmill work,
Right.
so that you can still execute that workout no problem.
Yeah. And if ever, we always let people know, if you guys need substitutions, we're always here at our support system. So, but yeah, so logistically 30-30, our job, or I've said this before in podcasts, like my job is to take all excuses away, like time, equipment, like all of those things that say, oh, I can't do this, I can't do that. Well, 30-30 is another answer to that complaint, you know? And so my job as a trainer is to just ensure that, yes, you are able to move and you're not, and it just doesn't have to be a walk. Like, here are some tools for your toolbox to use while you're on the road, while you're on the go, whether you're just at home and have very limited amount of time because it's Thanksgiving morning, like, and you just need to get some sweat in. Like, this is the answer to that problem.
In addition to being workouts in a pinch, what do you think are some of the benefits from going through it more strategically, like start to finish? I know you and I talked a lot about our transition here in the lab, because we had a lot of our test athletes and us had just came off of postseason strength. And then those athletes went into filming of 30-30 3.0. And right away we noticed how sore they got because of the increased volume, which is interesting because they just came off heavy strength.
Right.
But still the soreness was apparent. But at like certain times of the year and certain times of our life, switching to this high volume training is really ideal for our goals and objectives.
Yeah. And a little bit of soreness anytime you shift the stimulus is totally normal. I mean, well, like you said, shifting from more strength to higher volume, especially with no weight, so you're pushing really true high volume, you're going to have a little bit of soreness, but taking those deload weeks after, postseason was 16 weeks. So that's a lot of week in and week out loading on the joints, on tendons, ligaments. Now, we still challenge your, like, all of those mechanisms, right? We're still doing all the similar movement patterns, but we're experimenting a little bit with our variables, like a little bit more time under tension, a lot more volume, more athletic movements than, let's say, a postseason strength where your focus is definitely different. But the feedback has been, I mean, every time one of the athletes finishes that workout, they're like, God, yeah, that was so hard, but man, I feel so good.
Yeah.
And it's like every day, every film session, we wrap, we turn the cameras off, and that's the same feedback we get from every single athlete. They're like dripping in sweat. They're like, that was a crusher, but I just feel so good because it's not an hour.
Yeah.
It's not meant to just break you down and make you feel like death. Like, you may feel that way sporadically in that 30 minutes, but it's only a half hour. It's just enough to just say, wow, this is really uncomfortable, but at least it's short-lived.
Yeah.
And it's very impactful. And the program is balanced. I mean, it's balanced. We still have, some flush days. And then other days where it's like, it's time to go, like where we're doing higher volume. But the running days, I think, really also will help, just kind of get the body moving versus just lunging our way into oblivion, So getting some miles on our legs. We have lots of core, a lot of hip work, all of that prehab that we program into everything. This is no different. Like, we have to take care of our body. We don't write workouts to be hard just for the sake of being hard. I always like to ask myself, why choose this sequence? Why choose this block? Why choose this amount of reps? There has to be a reason and a purpose for it as it relates to the rest of the week and as it relates to the 6-week program.
Yeah.
There's always going to be intention behind those choices. So rest assured, there's method behind the madness.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
And I definitely saw that as well. Like, it's going to hit your central nervous system, but it's not going to gas you out for the rest of the day or the rest of the week.
Yeah.
So you're going to get that endorphin rush. You're going to feel amazing. You're going to feel smoked right at the end of that 30 minutes, but then you're going to get rejuvenated through the rest of the day with energy because we didn't completely max you out. And I know a lot of people that haven't experienced body weight training before don't realize how athletic you can get from just switching to body weight, like for one of your training blocks throughout the year. But you can even see it in the lab with the test athletes that, like, the athleticism that they have from doing quite a few of these workouts is noticeable and different. The way they're able to move their bodies, which is really key for everything that all mountain toughers are trying to do. We're all trying to reach these goals, whether it's in the backcountry, on the mountain, but a big part of athleticism too is just longevity. Like, our high quality life is directly correlated to how we're able to move as we get older, from whether that's like skiing on the weekends or playing with our kids.
Right.
If we're not taking time to do some different types of training, if we're only under the bar, if we're only looking for those heavy lifts, we are going to stay strong, but we're not going to stay functional. And
Right.
so by switching things up, by adding stuff like this is a game changer.
And I think it's important to address that the word functional training is sometimes very much overused. Now, it does not mean that it's not applicable in this sense, but I was just trying to think, like, body weight training or this program 30-30, I think is a very applicable style of training. It applies to real life. Lay on your stomach, play with your kids, get up. Lay on your back, having to support yourself. You've got to, I just keep thinking playing with kids, but just in any situation, just being able to manhandle your own body weight, we take it for granted because we always feel that we need to weight train, which we do. We always need to weight train, but don't ever take for granted your ability to just move your own body around, to sit on the floor and to get up multiple times in a row.
Yeah.
To be able to perform a perfect solid push-up, a perfect solid pull-up with just your body weight. And I think don't look past those really, really basic functional movements that lend to that longevity. And I think something else that's really special about 30-30 is that when you go to design a bodyweight program, pull-ups, push-ups, squats, lunges, right? Can't go wrong. But I think what's really unique about 30-30 is we've made it, you guys are going to laugh at me, but kind of fun. Because you do that through unique structures, sequences. You have a little bit of gamesmanship built in. A lot of our Mountain Tough team members have been the athletes. So Nate, Weston, Evan, and it's so much fun just to come up with ways where it can essentially go by kind of quick.
It goes by fast.
Yeah, because you're just, it's all that, those little mental challenges and the mental toughness that's sprinkled in, but then you're moving on to the next, or you have to finish this to accumulate as much as you can. So you're always competing, not just against yourself, not just against, the athletes, but you're competing against yourself and the athletes from the week before or the week before that. And so, yes, you're going to see your bread and butter body weight movements. There's no doubt about it. But we've sprinkled in these really fun structures and workout flows that just make it more enjoyable and not as like, okay, 30 seconds on, 10 seconds off, 5 days a week for 6 weeks. Like, there's so much more just mind games that you can play to be like, oh, that wasn't a torture fest, even though it was. But we tricked you into thinking it wasn't.
And we've seen that before around looking at other options that are available for digital fitness, especially with bodyweight training. There's certainly some great ones, but it also is common to see very simple formats and structures. This, for listeners, is going to be much more analogous to like a P90X type experience with the Mountain Tough style.
Right.
So like the virality of P90X was because it's like short, body weight only, fully coached. You have a coach and you're watching other athletes. This is similar to that. And we know that that was like one of the most successful digital fitness programs of all time. And that is because it's hitting so many of the key points around what you talked about in the beginning of the design. Like there's no excuse to not do this workout. It's only going to take 30 minutes and you need nothing at all. And we're going to be right there with you. And you're going to have peers to hold you accountable and benchmark off of. And that is the very unique thing about 3.0. And we saw with 1.0 and 2.0 that people started saving their favorites and saving their favorites for offline use. So like the magic pill, and they'll make sure that they have that on their phone in the Mountain Tough app for when they're stuck in a hotel room or they're traveling. But the big separator for 3.0 is that follow along style. So everything that you've enjoyed from 1.0 and 2.0, and we had the No Gear 60, people really fell in love with that body weight training, but they never got to experience it in this coached format. And this coached format changes kind of the entire game.
So you have the element of, we really aimed to create creative workouts. The experience is important to us here at Mountain Tough. The performance is important. Progressive overload is important. Exercise choice is very important. There's all these things that are the staples of every program that we're always going to have, but experiencing it in a follow along structure is, it's a really fun new way to make it different than the originals. It's like you kept all the great things, but now we just packaged it in a much more accessible way for people. So it's exciting.
Yeah, I can't wait for people to try it. And it's live now in the app. All Mountain Tough customers can check it out, 3030 3.0. If you haven't signed up for the app yet, every podcast listener can start on the code Mountain Pod, all one word, all caps, MTNPOD. That gets you 6 weeks free on Mountain Tough Plus. So you could finish the entire 3030 3.0 by using the podcast code if you have not been in the app before. And
that's perfect.
It's perfect.
How perfect is that? 6 weeks free.
Finish.
And no equipment required.
It's another excuse off the table.
Off the table. Don't even need money. It's great.
Well, thanks, Sarah. I'm excited. It's going to be amazing to see people go through it and see the comments come through.
Awesome. Thanks, Dustin. Good luck, Mountain Tough.